Hey everyone, welcome back to Holmes, A Century in the Making. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Lawson. Today we're going to be talking about the physical expansion that Holmes had from 1925 to present.
We're going to be discussing the story of Holmes Community College and how it grew from a small agricultural high school into a major two-year college between 1925 and 1975.
After that, we're going to have a special guest that we'll be introducing later who will talk about his time as a student and administration, as well as what expansions he witnessed.
It's kind of wild to think that Holmes started as just a high school back then, in 1911. By 1925, it was finally ready to offer the first year of college courses, and that's where our story really begins.
So, who was running things when Holmes made that jump to college level work?
That was under the superintendent M.E. Moorhead. Back then, the school had just 110 boarding students and 9 faculty members, only 2 of which had a master's degree. They had 3 main buildings: the administration building, the girls' dorm, and the boys' dorm.
In that time, room and board was only $12.50 a month. But students actually worked on campus, growing food, taking care of livestock, and even helping with the maintenance. I guess you could say Holmes was very self-sufficient.
Exactly. And under Moorhead, the college was accredited by Mississippi Association of Colleges in 1926, which was a really big deal. That meant Holmes was officially recognized as a legit 2-year college.
In 1928 to 1929, they added the second year of college courses. They built onto the administration building, brought in more qualified teachers, and were really starting to grow. What other improvements did they have back then?
In 1928, they built a gymnasium, mostly with the help from students and faculty. Could you imagine building your own gym?
Next came the 1930s, a big decade for construction for Holmes. In 1929, Holmes approved a $125,000 bond, which was a lot back then. They did this to fund new buildings, which was a new boys' dorm, an auditorium, agricultural and home science cottages, and even a home for the superintendent.
That's a lot of growth for that time, especially right before the Great Depression hit. But despite the challenges, they kept improving. In 1930, they dug a deep well, later named the A.M. Phillips Well, and in 1936, with help from the Works Progress Administration, they built a new football field and track.
Holmes was clearly investing in both academics and student life. By the 1940s, under President M.C. McDaniel, Holmes had grown so much that the main building was renamed the McDaniel Building in his honor when he retired in 1940.
All right, now let's talk about the 1950s, when things really started taking off. Holmes got $50,000 from the state legislature for campus improvements, and then they sold $100,000 in bonds to build a new gym that was finished in 1951.
In 1952, they received another $100,000, and President Clarence W. Lawrence decided to build a new student center with a canteen, bookstore, and recreation hall. Sadly, it burned down in 1955, but is rebuilt even bigger and named the Lawrence Center.
It is nice they honored him like that, especially since he passed away not long after. It really shows how much these leaders cared about the school's growth.
From the 60s and 70s is when Holmes truly transformed. Under President Frank B. Branch, the school added tons of new buildings: the McMorrow Library in 1961, a new cafeteria in 1963, the Montgomery Fine Arts Building in 1965, a vocational technical center in 1966, and more dorms throughout the early 70s.
That's incredible. Did you know that the plant value went from about $3 million in the late 1950s to even more by the early 1970s, and enrollment jumped from just 255 students in 1956 to over 2,400 by 1972.
Wow, that's like 10 times the number of students in less than 20 years. Holmes really became a full community college by that point, which strong academic and technical programs, modern buildings, and a thriving student body.
And in 1985, Holmes added the Grenada campus and the Originals campus, and they have both grown significantly since their founding.
So what do you think made Holmes grow successfully during those 50 years?
I think it was the combination of strong leadership and community support. Each president from Moorhead to McDaniel, Lawrence, and Branch helped push the college forward, and the Board of Trustees and faculty clearly played a big role. We are very proud and honored to introduce our special guest today, Dr. Jim Haffey. He is the president of Holmes Community College.
Well, it's great to be here.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate y'all having me.
Dr. Haffey, thank you so much for being here with us today. We just have a series of questions for you about how the college has grown as you were a student here and an administrator.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was Holmes like when you were a student here?
Okay, so it's a little different. So let me start off by saying I grew up very close to the campus. Did basketball camp here. We used to have the students. We stayed in motel dorm and played basketball in the old gym, and it was a cool place. 7th, 8th grade. But didn't get over here quite as much as you would think, only living about 10 or 11 miles from here. Came to campus 4 or 5 times. Took the ACT here, some different things like that. But I was convinced, after being with the same people for 13 years at the little high school I went to, that I needed to get out, and I did not need to go to Holmes because it was just right down the road. It made way too much sense to come somewhere affordable and with good people. So, not saying anything bad about them, but I decided to go to Hines Community College. I actually thought Hines was in Jackson, and I was dating a girl that was playing basketball at Millsap. So I thought, well, I'll be right next to Millsap. Well, I didn't realize that Hines, you didn't have the internet back then, really. So you just made these assumptions. So I thought Hines was just in the middle of Jacksonville and found out it was in Raymond. So it was like 25 miles out on the other side of where I really needed to be anyway. So I did that for a year. It was a good experience, of course, like any of our community colleges. It was a good first year, but all the things that I didn't think I wanted, I was missing. You know, I went to a small school before here, a lot of very active in a lot of things, whether it was playing all the sports, being in plays, being in government and all that, and just missed that, and knew for a fact that I wanted to come back. I wanted to go to Holmes my second year. So I did, and it was exactly what I needed. So glad I came back. Things were a lot more segmented back then because you did not have social media, you didn't have contact, so we really weren't even aware that there were other campuses. I mean, you just came to the Goodman campus. The Grenada campus and the original campus were there. They'd been there since the 80s. They were much smaller than they are today, but we didn't interact with the other campuses. We didn't have online classes. So we were pretty much in a bubble, right here. It felt like there were 300 or 400 students here at the time. There was probably a few more, probably 500 or 600, but it felt like 300 or 400. So you got close to the people that you were in a dorm with. We played a lot of poker in the dorms. You could smoke in the dorms back then. I'm not saying I smoked, but I remember it was a cloud of smoke coming out of rooms, like in the poker room and stuff. So it was very, late 80s, mid 90s kind of, a lot of camaraderie. People they weren't on their phones or weren't phones. So you played a lot of intramurals and you hung out, and it was a cool time. And I just remember thinking it was a lot smaller than we really were at the time, and a lot smaller than we are today. We probably have 5,000 or 6,000 students now, and like I said, it just felt like a few hundred of us back then. But I came from a very good academic background in high school, and that this was just another step up for that. And I remember being very challenged. And I don't want to, maybe we can just blend some of these future questions into all this that I'm kind of rambling on about. But the most important thing, not because this is a PTK project, but the most important thing that happened to me while I was a student at Holmes was Miss Julia Williams caught me one day outside the cafeteria, and she said, "Are you in Phi Theta Kappa?" And I said, "Phi Theta what? I don't know. I've never heard of Phi Theta." She said, "How did you not hear about Phi Theta Kappa at the college that you were at last year?" And I said, "I just didn't. I'm not aware of what that is." And she said, "Well, it's an honor society." And I was kind of into a lot of sports, and I wasn't necessarily a model student. I made good grades, but I was like, "Oh, that's great. It's an honor society." She goes, "Well, we meet I think they met every week." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll try to make it, Miss Williams," but I wasn't really thinking that I wanted to be part of an honor society because I was busy. And then as I was walking away, she's like, "Well, you get a great transfer scholarship when you leave and you go to the university. So I kind of spun around. I'm like, okay, tell me a little bit more about this Phi Theta Kappa deal. And so I went to my first meeting because I was going to pursue a scholarship and really enjoyed it. Back then, every member of Phi Theta Kappa could go on to the convention. So it's a little different than, I guess they still could, but it was promoted a little bit more back then. And so the chapter spent a lot of time fundraising throughout the whole year to send everybody, and that year everybody went to Dallas. But I did not go on the trip. But I think maybe 30 or 40 people from the campus went, and they had a big time. And they got to know the other campuses a little bit. So I hate that I missed the Phi Theta Kappa trip. But, so I found out all about Phi Theta Kappa, and I crunched my numbers, and because I had waited so late and didn't know the thresholds, I had to pull a perfect 4.0 that semester to sneak into Phi Theta Kappa with a 3.51, I think. So everything was churning along, and we get all the way to the end. All the grades are there, paperwork's done, and I had a little infraction at Holmes in the dorm that would not get you in very much trouble today. It would result in a small fine today. But back then, they said, well, you can't, it's only 2 weeks to go left in school, and you can't live in the dorm anymore. So I said, okay, not a big deal. I live 10 or 15 minutes down the road. Well, the PTK bylaws said at the time that if you were dismissed from the dorm, you were dismissed from Phi Theta Kappa. And if you were dismissed from Phi Theta Kappa, you didn't get the transfer scholarship. So it was going to be a full ride to Mississippi State. So I was pretty devastated, so I thought, I really worked hard for this, and now I'm in a pickle. But like any industrious student, I got the student handbook out and started going through it, and I read about how to do a full-blown appeal. And Maria Edwards was she's a foreign language instructor, and she was a family friend and great. And Audra Love Kimball, Audra Dean now, she was my business instructor. And so they both encouraged me to appeal, and I think I was the first student appeal that the college had in like 3 years. So they were like, hey, we need to figure out how to get a student committee together. And so my appeal was all set, and I was ready to plead my case why I should stay in Phi Theta Kappa. And then the president of Holmes at the time, Dr. Morgan, came to me and said, look, I hear you're going to do an appeal. I've looked at your case. How about we just have a compromise? You agree to stay out of the dorm, and we'll figure out how you can stay in Phi Theta Kappa. I said, you got a deal, Dr. Morgan. I'll take it. I'll be glad to drive for the rest of the semester or however long. Just don't dismiss me from Phi Theta Kappa. So I got to stay in Phi Theta Kappa, and I got my scholarship, and couldn't afford it. My parents went bankrupt farming, and my mom had gone back to school, and so without the PTK transfer scholarship, I would not have, I may have finished a 4-year degree, but there's no way that I would have continued on and got a master's degree, because I just wouldn't have been able to afford it. So I don't know, honestly, if I would have ever ended up sitting here today without PTK. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So to go off all that you just said, so what were some of your favorite memories as a student here?
Okay, without a doubt, the coolest thing we did, intramural sports was huge back then, because again, we wasn't a whole lot to do that was structured, but intramurals was a big deal. So we figured out that we wanted to get a bunch of guys from Lexington and Carrollton and Winona and just some people that we had known in high school. We decided we were going to get a really good flag football team up. And so there was a very off-color thing going on at the time, an Adam Sandler CD, and he had this character on there that was this talking goat that would also play football every now and then. So for whatever reason, we decided that our mascot was going to be the goats. So we found a goat farm that was like 7 or 8 miles from the campus, and we went up to their door and said, can we borrow your goat every time that we have a football game? And he was like, sure. So we had Eve the goat, and we would dress her up, we'd put a do-rag on her and sunglasses, and we'd put her in the back of the truck, and we'd bring her to the football games. the intramural games. And so we would play, like, the baseball team had a team, the basketball team had a team, several other teams. But anyway, we ended up winning went undefeated in some dramatic plays with our GOAT. And if you look in the annual that year, we actually got the cheerleaders, the real cheerleaders, to make one of those old football signs that said "Go Goats," and we had it hanging on one of the buildings before our last game. And so,
What year?
that was that would have been, the annual probably would have came out in '97. So we won. I guess we won our intramural championship in the fall of '96, and we actually got an invitation to go play in the flag football national championship at LSU.
That's
But we
cool.
couldn't afford to go, so we decided not to go. But we just celebrated, and we got our intramural T-shirts, and it was a cool experience that fall.
Dr. Haffey, how has the campus changed since you were a student here?
Okay, good question. Well, the interesting thing about the campus, maybe the college more would be, I've seen a lot more changes, but we're sitting on a campus that was started in 1921. So when I came in 95 or 96, it was already 70-something years old. So it had kind of stood the test of time. It didn't need a lot of additional space. So one thing that's interesting about the Goodman campus is it's historical, and it has a lot of larger buildings and larger parking lots and good green space, plenty of space for intramural fields and football fields and all those things. So when we had this shift in the late 90s from mainly in-person classes, really completely, whether that be summer school or whatever, the capabilities or the capacity of the buildings actually dropped down a good bit. So even though we've tripled in size, the amount of classroom space is actually that we need has gone down a little bit. So you're seeing our ability to convert classroom space into things like safe spaces for mental health and career centers and different things, because you just don't need massive amounts of classrooms because so many students are taking online classes or hybrid classes, and we're a lot more flexible about when we offer classes when they start. Used to be you needed this huge amount of classroom space in August because that was the only time you could come to school pretty much. Now you can do a 10-week, 4-week online, 10-week online, winter intercession, maybe, you can come to school. So we've taken that huge rush and we've spread it out over the course of a year instead of just that really big rush that you used to have when the fall semester started. So because the campus is so old and historical, it hasn't changed dramatically to me. It's been repurposed a lot, and we've tried to take beautiful buildings and leave them beautiful, but modernize them with new windows or different things and the best technology. I think that if you look at the technology inside our offices and our classrooms, they're better. You can put them up against any college in America. I really feel confident that all of our stuff behind the scenes and all that works flawlessly. But the college itself is dramatically changed in that bringing on the Grenada campus and the Ridgeland campus in the late 80s, that's changed a lot. Now only about 10% of our entire student population lives in a dorm. So most people would just see this campus and think, well, your traditional student's an 18-year-old that lives in a dorm. It's not. 90% of our students don't live in a dorm because they're on other campuses or they commute. So that's different. And so with the population shift, Madison County exploding, and that campus, the Ridgeland campus, in its proximity to a lot of things, it's really grown a lot. It's gone from one building to 7 or 8. And so what we are, and then Grenada's, on its own scale, kind of done the same thing. But what we've been able to do on the Goodman campus is just protect its beauty and just modernize things. Like if you look at our new athletic facility, it was a really old, ugly maintenance building that was built in the early 70s. And when I got here, it was like Pepto-Bismol color, had razor wire around the yard. And that was the back of the campus. And that's where the campus ended. So that's where you put the vehicle shop with junk cars and all that behind it. Well, as they've built a new home and lake and softball fields and all that around it, it's become more the center of the campus. And so it was really neat to take a maintenance shed and turn it into a multi-million-dollar indoor practice facility for athletics. And so that's just an example of not necessarily having to build something brand new, but repurposing something and modernizing it and adding, a 7,000 square foot weight room to the front of it, and making it look modern. So that it's just fun. It's fun to be president of an entity that has so many moving parts, where you can do historical renovations, but then you can build we're building a brand new $30 million allied health facility on the interstate, in Ridgeland. So it's fun. And then we built a beautiful health science building in Grenada when I was the VP there. So it's fun to build something state of the art from scratch, and it's also cool to renovate a 100-year-old building.
In your opinion, what has stayed the same about Holmes, like traditional or value-wise?
This is a hard one to if people aren't familiar with Holmes or haven't been here, it's hard to quantify, but it really is the spirit of being helpful to each other and to the students, and it's fun to be a little bit of a lean organization. Community colleges are by and large lean anyway, but Holmes, we have really good people, but we don't have a huge staff where you wear a lot of different hats. I've always appreciated that our counselors are also the Phi Theta Kappa advisors, and that people they like a good challenge, and they feel like it's not going to get done unless they help get it done. There's not somebody that's going to do that for them. That's been present for me since I was a student, and for the 23 years that I've been here. That Holmes people, students, everybody likes a good challenge, and they're not too proud to get in there and do it, themselves and help make it very successful. And when people are engaged, that's whether you're a student or an employee or whatever, a volunteer, being part of the decision making and the behind the scenes work. When you go to a homecoming or you go to a function and you help set it up, you help plan it, you help go pick up the food, whatever, it's a more meaningful thing than just coming and attending something. And so that's what I've always appreciated as far as about the vibe at the college. You asked about some traditions too, or yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think it's really neat that we brought the whole focus back to 1925 and the year that we were founded, and that we were founded as an agricultural high school, and that we balanced our history and our small town type values. But if anybody has been on our campuses, they know that we're not stuck in small town America. We're leading the way with anything that you would need at a major college. So to me that's the perfect blend. Is how do you walk into a place and it feel like where you grew up, but you have all the amenities and all the resources that you need. You shouldn't have to choose between, okay, they're small and they're very polite and they're very caring, but they don't have all the things I really need, and they don't have good technology, or they don't have faculty with fantastic credentials. We have the best of both worlds, I think.
Yes, sir. How does being a former Holmes student influence your leadership style as a president?
Mm-hmm. It does. Early on, it especially does. At some point, it just being all the things along the way or make who you are. So I think that was the first step in my administrative role, was to remember those times and how it influenced you, and then you live through a lot of crisis and things, and you just get better, over an 11-year period of being a president. But one thing that does stick out to me, and we've touched on this, was sometimes I just think when we write policy, we try to not, sometimes a small policy that is just to the point is way better than trying to craft the perfect policy that says, well, what about this situation? We need to put something about that. What if this happens? We need to put, because you lose the flexibility to be human because you've written a policy that says, if this happens, these are the 5 things that are going to happen, versus almost like, when this happens, the appropriate action will be taken. Because then when you have great people, you have a great, VP of academics or dean of student services and all that, you trust them, and you trust them to look at the situation and use their best judgment and use their heart to rule on that, instead of just writing out a handbook about how everything's going to be done. And so I go back to that, when I messed up and deserved a little bit of punishment, but the college had a little mercy on me and saw a compromise and allowed me to stay in Phi Theta Kappa, and that was the appropriate decision. And yeah, there was some pain in there, but it didn't mess up my whole career. And I think about that sometimes. It's like, yeah, we need people to be safe, and we need people to be doing things with integrity and not cheating and all those things, but let's not drop the hammer on a student and it mess up their potential. And so sometimes when we look at discipline, it's like, okay, maybe they don't need to be living in the dorm, and maybe they don't even need to be on campus because there's a passionate issue that's going on and they don't need to be around this other person. Well, let's at least let them stay in school and take online classes for a few months, let the situation cool off, and then let's see if they can come back. So just trying to, be appropriate, but lead with a little bit of mercy.
What do you think makes Holmes stand out from other community colleges in Mississippi?
Well, we have the best community college system in America. It's been ranked that way. It's the oldest system in America. So we're dealing with almost like, being a member of the SEC and saying like, hey, what makes you the best SEC football program? Well, any program is really good, And so there's some things that I think, so I'd put our system as a whole, the 15 community colleges, up against any other state. And that's not necessarily the case with all of education, but we really do have the best overall system in America. And so the standards are pretty high. But I know that our STEM programs have always been really highly regarded. I know a lot of students that are trying to get in the medical professions. Our nursing program is fantastic and is well regarded. But all those other programs, trying to get into physical therapy, occupational therapy, med school, nurse anesthetists. I've heard people say, some really prestigious universities around. I've heard people at UMMC say, you really ought to go take A&P at Holmes this summer because you really need that background. I know you're going XYZ school right now, but you really ought to look at Holmes. And we're great in our workforce training and our career tech things, but I would say that I hear a lot of really good feedback on the rigor and the level of quality of our STEM programs and our allied health and those the laboratory science classes that we have. So.
What advice would you give to today's home students about making the most of their time here?
Getting involved, and it's not a cliche, it's really the truth, and that's not just here, but it's in your church, it's in your next job, all those things. Like, you're just not going to reach your full potential if you're not involved. You don't need to be a spectator, you don't need to be an inactive participant, obviously you can't be involved in everything. There's things that you're passionate about, but find those things at Holmes that you're passionate about, and maybe some things that you're not, there's a little outside your comfort zone, and get involved in some things, because it's rare that there's some studies that say that the more involved you are, you're busier, but your performance in all things goes up. And so I don't know why that is, but a student that's not doing anything, that's just lying around their dorm room a lot, their grades are usually not as good as somebody that's in Phi Theta Kappa or in a sport. Our athletes, strangely, as busy as they are, athletes have higher GPAs than general students, and most people don't understand that. But I think it's because they're engaged and they're on a schedule and they're motivated, and somehow it spills over into the classroom, and they have good success. And anything that you're involved in, you're going to look back on, and you're going to be much more connected to the institution down the road than you are if you're just come and go to class and leave.
How do you hope to be remembered as a president?
Well, gosh, this is probably shouldn't. This will probably get edited out, but many years from now, when you're watching this, there was this coach called Lane Kiffin that was at the University of Mississippi. And for the last 3 months, we've been hearing the Lane, or maybe seems like 3 months, we've been hearing the Lane Kiffin drama. And he left Ole Miss after doing some great things, and he's not going to be remembered fondly there because of the way that he left. And I think people never felt like he was a true rebel, or he had Ole Miss in his blood. And so even though he did some great things, and then he left on bad terms, he's not going to be remembered real fondly. And so to put that in perspective of how do you want your legacy to be? I guess I would like to be remembered as somebody that bled Cardinal red, as a true Holmes guy that was in our community. But to be a reflection of Holmes is okay, how can I be Holmes through and through, but also be a great leader for the college, to have brought in the resources that the faculty needed to build the buildings that we needed to grow the college, so to not have to settle as a president of, okay, I'm just a hometown guy that didn't accomplish a lot, or I'm not a hometown guy that that accomplished a lot. So I hope that I'm remembered as a good blend of somebody that deeply loved Holmes. My grandmother went to school here as a high school student, but it didn't cloud my vision to see the future of what Holmes needed. So, and you can. I mean, sometimes if you're too close to something and you're too connected and you care too much about the people there, you can't make hard decisions. I mean, you've got to be willing to fire your friends. If you're going to be, if they need to go, they need to go. It should be a last resort, but if you're going to be, if you're going to lead an institution the way it needs to be, you've got to be able to make tough decisions and not let your background and your personal connections cloud that.
And lastly, what do you think Holmes will look like 50 years from now?
Ooh, I'm gonna go on a limb and say it's not going. I don't know. Maybe AI is going to change things a lot more rapidly than I think, but we're already in 100 years. The way that Mr. Wood teaches history has not drastically changed over the last 25 years. You still have to be passionate about the subject matter. You still have to, be knowledgeable, and you still have to have a personal connection with your students. So I can't see teaching styles changing a whole lot. The delivery will change, but I don't know how much more convenient things can get. I would see some open source things change in education. It only takes one, multi-billionaire to decide that college should be free, or that education should be free, to start tearing down the profit model of higher education. So will it shift from more of a social, especially at the universities, will it shift from a place where you're going for a lot of socialization to, look, this is the bare bones that I need to be a competent attorney or a welder or whatever, that I can see some of that changing. Definitely the way that resources, like students shouldn't have to pay for books. It's ridiculous. There's a there's a lobby out there for the book people. They may not like me saying it, but I mean, why do books still cost as much as they cost when it's delivered electronically? and the research has been done. It shouldn't cost hardly anything. So hopefully books will be free. All those materials will be free in the future. And you know, I hope that college students should have a little skin in the game where they're serious about it. But it's really crazy what college costs. That, you know, you've got to be willing to spend $200,000 to become a pharmacist. You know, that should change, and it can change. It's not that expensive to deliver education, and so hopefully either our government or some really great you know, benefactors will change that. And people want to still go to some, you know, hoity-toity college, and you know, because of the football team and the, you know, the Greek life and the, you know, the restaurants on campus. There's nothing wrong with any of that. But for the student that doesn't have time for that and doesn't have the money for that, I think that they should be able to get, you know, a 4-year degree for free. And I hope to see that in the next 50 years.
Thank you so much for meeting with us today. You gave us so much information, and we really appreciate everything that you've done for our school.
Well, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Best of luck to y'all.
Sir, thank you.
Have a good day.
Next, we are going to be sharing some short stories from our alumni.
We were able to interview 25 different alumni from different graduation classes.
Hey, what's your name? What year did you graduate, Holmes? And what's your favorite memory?
Robert Alexander, graduated in 1954, played football 52 and 53. I am in the Halls of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame. My favorite memory, this is the first time I'd been away from home and I didn't know what was going on. I had 2 pair of blue jeans and 2 t-shirts, and that's about all I had. But I enjoyed my 2 years here. Yeah. That the boys had a hard time courting the girls because they wouldn't let them out of the dormitory. Sometime a few minutes to go down to the can, but then you couldn't hold hands with them or love them. They didn't do anything.
Oh, I'm Maggie Garrett. I was Maggie McCrory. I graduated in 1957. And I have so many memories, but one thing that's kind of unique with me, I started first grade at Goodman and I went all the way through until I graduated from Holmes. There are only 3 of us living since then, but I still have friends who were my best friends at Holmes, and we're still connected.
Okay, my name is Billy Wilson, and I graduated in 1962. And one of my favorite memories was making the tennis team at Holmes, because I'd always been considered one of the most uncoordinated people that ever attended. So when I made the tennis team, that was a big deal. I have a lot of other favorite memories too, because it was a beautiful campus. My dad was the dean of the college, and I grew up right on the college. So I had a lot of favorite memories even before I became a student. But I always really, when I think about college memories, great college memories, it wasn't at the university or graduate school, it was always at home. And I come back as often as possible. I live an hour away, so I'm back on campus and love to work with Phi Theta Kappa. Name is Claude Elam. I graduated from Holmes in 1974. And I played football down here, so one of my memories is homecoming against East Central. First play of the game, they made it to the 1-yard line, and our defense held them out for 4 plays straight. So that's one of my memories from down here. Yeah.
My name is Terry Junior Moore. Graduated in '74. Probably the famous memory is probably when we put in the Hall of Fame as well. I don't remember what year the Hall of Fame was, but yes.
Clarence Harmon Jr. graduated in 1975, and my happy memories of being inaugurated in the Sports Hall of Fame.
My name is Betty Sue Adams. I went to Holmes in 1966, got a degree in 67. I went back to work in 1974 and taught math on the Richland campus from 1985 until we retired in 2011. But I was a Phi Theta Kappa advisor for 20 years. And my favorite memories of being a Phi Theta Kappa advisor is taking the students on trips. Leadership conference, international convention. We had an international officer from our campus in Ridgeland in 1995. We had Southern Vice President. So favorite memories are spending time with those students, working on projects for Phi Theta Kappa. I've had them in my house, so we've had them all over my classroom, just traveling with them and watching them grow.
My name is Rayanne Haffey, and I graduated in 1994. And I would say my most memorable moments are just meeting new people, and Holmes is just a special place to me, and I still have those lasting relationships today.
Hey, I'm Melissa Love. I graduated in 2001, and I was on the Holmes women's soccer team in Goodman, which was the first women's soccer team at Holmes. And my one of many favorite memories of mine was playing a game out by the lake on the Goodman campus. And when we won a game, I don't remember who it was against, but we all celebrated our win by running into the water, and we jumped in the lake, and it was fabulous.
Hey, I am Monifa Bill Horton. Dr. Monifa Bill Horton. I graduated from Holmes in 2001. I was the SGA president and the 75th anniversary homecoming queen. And my favorite memory of Holmes, I have a lot of them. One of my most favorite memories is having the haunted house in the old gym, as well as having the haunted trails deep off in the woods. Then our freshman and sophomore activities is our SGA activities of having the spring fling, the crawfish boil, as well as the watermelon crawl down the hill of Yazoo, the back of Yazoo Hall. And let me see, there's so many other memories. I was an unofficial band member, so because I was on the field as a trainer, I couldn't be in the band or the dance team. So I learned all the dance routines and danced with them on the sidelines, and just got everybody involved and made sure that when I became HGA president that we had a spring formal. So Holmes has been everything to me, and now I have a freshman here.
My name is Nikki Boutwell. I actually work at Holmes as the ambassador sponsor and the recruiting specialist here for the Goodman campus. I graduated in 2017, and my favorite memory would be being a part of the Holmes Connection and performing at homecoming as a freshman for the first time in front of friends and family, and then being a homecoming maid.
I'm Cassidy Sizemore. I graduated in 2020, and my favorite memory about Holmes was being an ambassador. I was under Leslie Spell at the time, and then Miss Nikki Boutwell took over, but I loved it.
My name's Haley Haffey. I graduated in 2022, and my favorite memory was having Mustache Band at our homecoming.
My name's Ella Hendry. I graduated in 2025, and my favorite memory of Holmes is working the events like Freshman Friday and Homecoming as an ambassador.
Hi, I'm LaKayla. I will graduate in actually December of this year and 2025. So I think my favorite memory so far is right now, what we're making right now. So glad to be here.
I'm Brenton Foster. I'm going to be graduating May of 2026. And my favorite memory? I'm not too sure, honestly, but there's been a lot of memories made that I know I couldn't do without them, so yeah.
My name is Diana Garcia. I will graduate in May of 2026, and my favorite memory from Holmes are definitely the basketball games.
My name is Leah Horman. I'll be graduating May of 2026, and my favorite memory is the Spring Fling Crawfish Bowl.
My name is Michaela Light. I'm going to graduate in 2026, and my favorite memory has to be going to the homecoming dance and getting to dress up.
Hey, my name is Olivia Crowley. I'm going to graduate in 2027, and my favorite memory at Holmes is homecoming.
My name is Elizabeth Orduna. I'm graduating in May of 2027, and my favorite memory at Holmes has been my first homecoming.
Hey, my name is Sarah Beth Moore, and I'm going to graduate in 2027. And my favorite memory about Holmes is honestly just being an ambassador. It's great.
The story of Holmes is really about the people who believe in education and worked hard to meet the needs of their students.
Kind of makes you wonder, what will Holmes look like 100 years from now? Hopefully it's still growing, adapting, but keeping that same Bulldog spirit.
And this has been Holmes, a century in the making. 3,